Flydigi has a reputation for making feature-rich third-party gaming controllers for PC, but up until now they've never offered anything for Xbox. The Vader 5S is their first Xbox-branded controller, a wired Pro model designed for both Xbox and PC. I was genuinely curious to see how it performs because it's the first Flydigi controller I've used. I'll also be comparing it to the excellent and more expensive Gamesir G7 Pro that I reviewed recently, because from a features standpoint they're pretty similar. This review will also cover the design, performance, feature set, and the overall usability. So let's just get straight into it. But before we do that, I just gotta let you know that this was sent to me for review. As usual though, I haven't been paid or influenced to say anything about it, and all opinions are my own. The Vader 5S is an affordable Pro pad that's clearly targeting the competitive audience. It costs $59 or roughly 85 Aussie dollar bucks, and although it might be less expensive than some of its rivals, it's certainly not light on features. You get 6 additional remappable buttons. This translates as 2 back buttons, 2 additional bumpers, and 2 additional face buttons. It has trigger stops that let you change the triggers from Hall effect to micro switches, and the sticks are Hall effect too, and these feature Flydigi's adjustable tension system, which allows you to adjust how stiff they are. The controller will store up to 4 profiles on board, and it allows you to perform most of its custom settings on the fly. The biggest downside for Xbox players is going to be the lack of wireless. Now, before you get all up in arms about this, there's a couple of reasons for it. The answer I got from Flydigi is that they wanted to focus on performance and stability. This is their first Xbox controller after all, so yeah, that makes sense. The other factor is the price. Adding wireless to Xbox controllers adds a significant overhead, and while it doesn't seem like this was the primary reason for not including it, it may have been a factor. So while the lack of wireless here is a bummer, it's understandable, and if the 5S costs $50 to $60 more, it would probably change how I feel about it. Now finally, being officially licensed, you get a month free of Game Pass Ultimate. The Vader 5S is similar in size to an official Xbox controller. I initially thought it was significantly smaller, but it's almost identical. I'm not exactly sure why I thought it was smaller, and I have no complaints about the comfort. Actually, I think the ergonomics, at least for me, are slightly better than the official pad. Aesthetically, I really like the black and gold appearance. This is a very conservative design, which is in contrast to a lot of third-party controllers. The front panel is matte black, with a small section at the top where the Xbox logo is that has this understated speckled appearance. I even think the LED is tastefully done. Long-time watchers will know that I don't like unnecessary lights on gaming equipment, but this is alright. You can customize the color in the software, so if you want something less loud or even potentially more loud than what I've got here, the full spectrum as well as brightness control is at your disposal. I like how it feels too. It has a subtle texture on the grips, and the choice of materials overall makes it comfortable to hold. Additionally, it has a nice heft at 260 grams, making it feel solid in your palms. A key difference compared to other Pro controllers is the button layout. Instead of 4 rear buttons or paddles, this controller has 2 rear buttons, 2 additional shoulder buttons, and 2 additional front-facing buttons. Now, I don't think one approach is objectively better than the other. They simply offer different layouts that will suit different preferences and different types of games. For example, in fighting games, having 6 front-facing buttons could be an advantage. Now, the back buttons here are small and slightly raised, and they have a moderately loud click, which I really like, but might be too loud for some. Conversely, the front ABXY buttons are quiet despite being mechanical. They feel very springy, with the typical mechanical click at full press. Interestingly, the 2 new C and Z buttons, I believe, are regular membrane buttons. They have a defined click on full press and are also pretty quiet. I would have preferred if they matched the ABXY buttons for a more consistent feel. Their size and tactile response are noticeably different, especially in games that use 6 front-facing buttons. The D-pad is a rotary pivoted design where the whole D-pad sits on top of the controller rather than being inset into the shell. This means that it kind of acts like a flat joystick with a defined pivot in the center. In theory, it should allow for more precise 8-way input, and in my experience it's not bad. It's very clicky though, which I'm guessing will be something you either love or hate. Now, the sticks use a conventional Xbox-style convex design and feel precise and smooth in practice. Adjusting the tension is done with these chunky dials on the controller. You simply turn them either clockwise to increase the tension or counterclockwise to make them lighter. The dials have a small click to help you make fine adjustments too. It's an intuitive system which makes customization on the fly pretty easy because you don't need to look at the controller to do it. The mechanism on my right stick does feel a bit loose, but so far it hasn't caused any issues. I do wonder about how this will last long term, and it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. What's great about being able to adjust stick tension is that you could also pair it with some performance thumbsticks like Control Freaks for the best of both worlds. I think the extra resistance is useful, but I also really like a taller stick for aiming. You get rumble in both the grips and the triggers. The rumble is pretty strong too, especially in the triggers, and if it's too strong you can configure this in the software. Using the toggle on the back, you can swap between long pull Hall effect triggers or short pull microswitch triggers. These use Flydigi's own Force Flex tech, and in either mode they feel both responsive and satisfying to use. On the bottom you get a mic mute button for use with a connected headset and a function button for customizing settings. The mute button can also be used to adjust headset volume by holding it down and then using the right stick to change the level. Configuring settings directly on the controller is fairly straightforward, as most adjustments involve holding the function button while pressing another input. That said, it's worth keeping the instruction manual nearby as there are around 10 different button combinations to remember. Okay, so the 5S does a lot, but a couple of missing features that you may have noticed are the ability to create macros and a turbo function. The reason for this is that the 5S is positioned towards standard competitive play, so these were intentionally not included, and this is possibly to avoid being banned at tournaments. On the performance front, the 5S clocks in at 250Hz. I recorded this on PC. Seeing as Xbox caps polling at 250Hz, it's safe to assume that this is the maximum you'll get on Xbox too, meaning there's only a slight advantage here over a regular pad. You can change most settings right on the controller and switch between profiles without needing a PC, which is great. There is an Xbox app though, which gives you even more control for things like stick sensitivity, dead zones, circularity, and the LED. It's especially helpful for setting up multiple profiles, which again you can do on the controller, but is much easier using this interface. There is an app on PC too, although during the pre-launch window it didn't work for me. I've honestly had a pretty hard time deciding on if I prefer this or the Gamesir G7 Pro in practical terms. They offer a similar level of functionality, although the 5S does have more buttons and the tension sticks are a nice addition. The 5S definitely has the superior D-pad too, again making it more suited to fighting games and retro games. The G7 Pro does feel more premium, and I think the microswitch triggers are a smidge more snappy feeling. Button layout will be highly subjective, but I think the G7 Pro is the more comfortable of the two, mainly because of the rubberized grips and low profile back buttons. Mileage is likely to vary though, depending on personal preference and the type of games you play. Overall, I think the G7 Pro is probably the better pad because I prefer the ergonomics and the tactile feel of the buttons. But there's no denying that the Vader 5S offers exceptional value for the money. If more features and more control is what you're after, then there's a solid argument for Flydigi's controller. This is another solid Pro Pad choice for both Xbox and PC. If you want additional buttons but want a different layout than having multiple back buttons, this is an excellent option. And for this reason, I think the Vader 5S is a bit more versatile than pads that only have back buttons. Like I said, 6 front-facing buttons could be an advantage for fighting games, action RPGs, and retro gaming. This is a comfortable Pro Pad that's well worth considering if you're after more features than an Xbox controller, but don't want to break the bank.